Mayor. So first of all, would you like to, I'm going to ask my committee members, Mayor Mutz and Commissioner McCarley, if you'd like to take these one at a time to vote on them or go through them one at a time?
One at a time, if you could.
Okay, because there are 5 of them today. So yes. The first one is for the Fire Pension Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees requests that the City Commission ratify their appointment of Susan Buchanan for a 4-year term beginning May 21st, 2021 and ending May 20th, 2025. And is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. The second one is an Employee Pension Board. Recommendation from Sherry Watson to reappoint Rick Lilliquist to a 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31, 2024.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve this. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, there's a recommendation from Annie Gibson to appoint Demira Stoll to a 3-year term beginning October 18th, 2021 and ending October 17th, 2024. Ms. Stoll will serve as a person who represents a local planning agency.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Also on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, we have a young man who is new, Alex Craig, to fill an unexpired term beginning October 18th, 2021 and expiring May 5th, 2022. Mr. Craig will serve as a person who represents essential services personnel. And we have
Move for approval.
And the second.
And I'll just add a little discussion to mix it up a little bit. When you get these, certainly it's public record to also see their applications and a little bit more about each person. And this is a history teacher in Haines City, and it was just fun to see that he had interest in several community boards, and hope more people will consider putting their name out there as well, just to get involved in city government. So I was excited to see his eagerness to get involved. And we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And on the CRA Advisory Board, we have a recommendation from Elise Drumgo to appoint Terry Coney to a 3-year term beginning October 18th, 2021 and ending October 17th, 2024. Mr. Coney will serve as a representative for the Midtown seat.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, and any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And our final recommendation is for the Airport Advisory Board. We have a recommendation from Jean Conrad to appoint Randy Young, a Publix pilot of 18 years, to fill an unexpired term beginning October 18th, 2021 and ending February 4th, 2024. Mr. Young will fill a citizen at large seat.
Move for approval.
And the second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and just to also mention that the Canvassing Board meeting schedule and attendance is posted and public record October 29th, 2021 at 8:25 a.m. in the City Commission Conference Room. There will be a meeting to authorize the City Clerk to begin processing vote by mail ballots on November 1st, 2021 at 4:30 p.m. in the City Commission chambers. And the purpose of this meeting is to authorize the City Clerk to begin processing vote by mail ballots received over the weekend. On November 2nd, 2021, there will be a 5 o'clock at the Election Operations Center to canvass absentee ballots for the 2021 Lakeland municipal election, and at 7 p.m. at the Election Operations Center to canvass vote by mail ballots, receive precinct totals, and certify unofficial results for the 2021 Lakeland municipal election. On November 5th at 8:30 a.m. in the City Commission Conference Room, they will review provisional ballots, certify election results, and randomly select the race and precinct for the manual audit. And on November 9th, 2021 at 8:30 a.m. in the City Commission Chamber, they'll conduct the manual audit. as usual, we are always accepting applications, and even if there are not vacancies, we'd love to know your interest, so when the vacancies arise, we can put you in and get you right to work serving our wonderful city.
Commissioner Madden, I know during this period of time where we're campaigning out and about, a lot of times people will ask, how do I get involved in the city? I'd like to be doing something. This is the key way to get started.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I just have a question. Can we, Kelly, get, and maybe I missed an email when we do have new appointments, like the backup documentation or applications, or is
You
there?
missed it.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Should have been on
attached to
the-
the appointment on your calendar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good to know.
I listed the canvassing board meetings, if I may,
Yes.
because I think there might be a conflict on November 5th with the Florida League of Cities Legislative Conference. We have 2 people in attendance there. We have a very small canvassing board this time around. So I'm wondering if we should change the November 5th time to the afternoon, but I don't know the schedule for the league's conference.
Couldn't be the next day.
Well, the next day would be Saturday.
Ah.
I'm open if you are. But it could be Friday afternoon, or it could be first thing Monday morning. I think the charter allows us, it didn't used to, but the last charter changed.
You know, in the league meetings.
So as Kelly and I talked about this yesterday, I will be, I can do the Friday morning because I will come back Thursday evening after the conference and then go back over to Orlando Friday morning. So if we needed to keep it Friday morning, I don't think Commissioner Walker will be here. I don't know for sure. So maybe we get with him and see if he has a preference. I could do Friday morning or Friday afternoon, whichever works for him.
Is the conference over Friday afternoon?
That's a good question. I think it's over midday Friday. I just don't know his schedule with him being president of the league, and if he's, I will probably be back before he is, but
Right.
we might want to get his input.
We could leave it now that I'll be reaching out to those who are members of the board, and we will probably be tweaking that November 5th time then. Is that good with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Then I call this meeting adjourned.
Good news is your timing was perfect. It's 8:30 and we can start our agenda study. So we'll give Andrew time to just cue that up for a second as a break in the recording. By the way, he's doing a marvelous job on all of our media and support for the meetings, and even, I don't know if you have seen some of his videos on studies, and he kind of does an overview. The recaps.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Can I just add, Mr. Mayor, that he spoke at the Lakeland Vision meeting last week and did an excellent job too.
Okay.
Feedback.
Anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, except that the committees and the agenda study are actually together and recording,
Okay.
so we are already ready to go, but I appreciate that break.
Anytime you can have praise breaks, you want
Yeah,
this.
and it's all recorded.
Okay, great. Well, it's earned. All right, so you can see we'll have our normal start to the meeting, salute and the call to order. And then we'll have the presentations from Brian Ruiz, which on their approach in terms of the community and our customers who are constituents and our business constituents. Proclamations, we have 4. Not a lab rat day is actually an anti-drug thing, so it's a good positive thing. It might throw you off a little. And then we'll discuss our committee meetings that we just had, and then we will go to the minutes, and we can look at the consent items, which include the minutes to be approved, and then items under City Attorney 6C1 and 2 for our first 2.
All right, 6C1, we have a comp plan amendment coming forward that's going to require at least one of the 2 readings to be after 5 p.m. unless the City Commission decides to waive that requirement. So this is a request to waive that 501 hearing requirement.
Okay, any questions on that one? And the next one?
The second item is a continuing contract to get a couple of contractors available to do fence repairs as needed for the various city departments. 2 firms responded to the city's bid on this, and we're going to enter into a continuing contract, or recommending that we enter into a continuing contract with both of them. Williams Fence Company out of Lakeland, and RJR Contractor out of Winter Haven. Once again, these will just be continuing master agreements, and then any work that is required will be authorized pursuant to task authorizations that would come back to you, or if they're within the city manager's signature authority, they would be handled by the city manager. It's a 2-year term for initial term with 2 additional 1-year renewal options upon mutual written agreement of the parties.
Commissioner Music.
On that, when we have a contract like that for 2 years and it's just, hey, a vehicle ran into a fence or something fell down or whatever, does it go this company, that company, this company, that company? How do we make sure, like, at the end of that term, it's equitable?
I mean, the different departments try to do that.
Okay.
But it's all depending on who's available, how much they're going to charge, you know, their current workload, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
Any comment there? All right, any other questions or comments? All right, the next one, sir. So we're going to leave that one, and then that takes us to utility C1.
Yes, this is in Ramona Sirianni for the City Attorney's Office. This is amendment number 1 to the existing website application and design services agreement that we have with Apogee Interactive. We have had an agreement with them for 5 years. This is in an existing renewal period. The initial agreement with Apogee was to provide Lakeland Electric with services related to its web redesign project, so customers could better utilize smart grid applications and navigate the website more easily. The amendment number 1 expands the website tool set to provide the education and engagement of customers with regard to electric vehicles and demand rates. And pursuant to the amendment, Apogee will be implementing Energy Advisor services to LE's website, Save Money Energy Toolset area. They're going to design and implement a calculator for electric vehicles, and also design and implement a demand rate tool set. Upon your approval, Apogee will begin work on these above specified services. Those would be effective November 1st, 2021, and they are anticipated to complete the overall project in October of 2022. All the services will be performed in accordance with the terms and conditions that are part of the original services agreement with Apogee, as well as amendment number 1. And the total cost of services is $88,000, and that is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget.
I have a question on this. Does this then integrate with other vendors' websites in terms of the information availability that, you know, where we have units? In other words, does it make it inclusive in the internet for access to information, or is this?
I think this is a self-contained tool set just for our for Lakeland Electric's website, but I believe we have staff. I don't see David Cuss here.
In the past, it's been a module.
Yeah, it's self-contained, but I'm pretty sure we would have links to other websites as well for informational purposes. But this is self-contained tool set that Apogee's providing for Lakeland Electric's website.
And I'm asking the question not because you know, that makes this exhaustive. It's just that this is a 5-year contract going forward, and in this next 5-year period of time.
Well, this is subject to renewal every 12-month period.
Okay,
so this is, the initial term of the agreement was 5 years,
That's
but
right.
it's subject to annual renewals. But at that point, either party can terminate within, I believe it's 60 days prior written notice if they want to terminate a renewal. So it's not a 5-year contract anymore.
You want to leave that on consent? No?
No.
Well, I don't know. I thought the conversation was interesting.
Yes?
I hate to have it on consent, but
You want to take it off consent?
no, yeah, I would like to. But
Any opposition to that?
That's, I could go with that. That's,
I'm fine
yeah,
with that.
Either way.
Then, ditto. Okay, so we'll take that one off consent. Number 2, doesn't mean you lost your case. It just,
I just want to hear you say it again.
The second item that we have is a task authorization with TJR Technical Services. This is for the Macintosh Unit 5 heat recovery steam generator for consulting and technical services during our fall 2021 outage. TJR will provide the technical oversight and consultation. This is related to sectional replacement of the heat recovery steam generator, or HRSG, boiler roof, as well as performing a crawl-through inspection of the HRSG, the turbine exhaust and steel and steam drums, and overseeing basic general boiler outage maintenance, general boiler outage activities. They'll also be cleaning the fin tubes, headers, insulation, gas deflection baffles, turbine exhaust joints, and expansion joints. And ultimately, after the services are performed, they'll also conduct an evaluation on the overall performance of the HRSG in the unit. Upon your approval, they will commence services as of November 1st, 2021. And then those services will be completed prior to the end of the year. All the terms and conditions are in accordance with the city's continuing contract for boiler and plant outage engineering consulting services, which you approved on October 1st, 2019. And then also in accordance with TJR's proposal dated September 29th, 2021. The total not to exceed cost of the services is $100,000. And that's included as well in Lakeland Electric's FY 2022 budget.
And this is our current vendor for these services?
It's just pursuant to a continuing contract. Okay. So they are under contract, and then the task authorization will be issued pursuant to that. So this was the specific contractor that was tasked with this.
Want to leave that on? Okay, yes, thumbs up. All right. We'll leave that one on. And so that's it on consent. Got that set up. And then we go, no request from the general public, equalization hearings, so public hearings, A1.
All right, A1 is the culmination of a painful but ultimately beneficial process of going through all the different ordinances and resolutions that have been adopted over the years that have accepted various different positions throughout the city from the civil service system. Nicole had worked very closely with Human Resources to figure out which positions belonged in civil service and which should be accepted. So there were several ordinances that accepted some positions. So this ordinance is simply repealing all those different ordinances that had exceptions to civil service within them. There is a companion item to this ordinance on the agenda, 6B1, which is the resolution, which is consolidating all the different, the list of all the different positions that are accepted from civil service, and repealing all the different resolutions that have been adopted over the years. The only substantive changes that are occurring are we are accepting the position of emergency manager from the civil service system and recommending that the position of management analyst be restored to the civil service system. And it's important to note that all other positions are not being changed. So this is not affecting any person out there that's employed by the city right now and resulting in them either being within or not within civil service, except for the emergency manager position and management analyst position.
The changes that we made for several positions was maybe a year or two ago. Didn't we have some civil service changes?
We've done it several years ago. We've done it 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and this is cleaning all that up, getting rid of all these different instruments that have done that and putting it all in a single resolution.
Questions on that? Okay, next.
All right, now we're getting into the list of the different text amendments to the Land Development Code that you heard about last time. And I know that we have a couple of things we definitely want to touch on this morning. There was a graphic that was prepared showing where RVs, motorhomes can be parked in side yards. And we also wanted to talk about the definition of new manufactured home for the purposes of allowing replacements of mobile homes in non-conforming mobile home parks. And we can also go through the entire thing as well if you'd like to do that, or just answer questions as they arise.
Good morning, Teresa Mayo with Community and Economic Development. Again, I can go through the slides that we presented at last month's agenda study if you want to go through each one of these. I know we had quite a bit of discussion, but I did want to touch on one of the amendments in particular, and that was the one dealing with the parking of boats, trailers, and RVs on residential property. That's item number 4 under the public hearings for second reading. And this revision has to deal with a clarification needed for where those items can be parked. And we had Matthew Lyons prepare this exhibit on the right here, which shows the area in yellow. That was the area that was troublesome when we had people, looking at the standard and saying it was unclear. So you can see now that there's been a definition added for the term street side yard. So that, in combination with changing the actual provision itself, provides the clarification to now require that these items be placed behind building facades and out of those street yard and front yard setbacks. So everything shown in green here is where someone could park RV, boat, or trailer.
That's nice, because that's very clear.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Then the second item that we wanted to talk about was the next item, which is item 5. And in the allowance for replacement of mobile homes in non-conforming mobile home parks, it currently states that those units be no older than 10 years old. And there was discussion with some interested parties that be 25 years. So either today or at Monday's meeting, we'd be looking for direction from you to increase that to 25 years. And Palmer, I don't know if that could be done today, and then we would just revise the ordinance
Formal
before.
vote would need to occur on Monday, so there need to be a motion to amend that ordinance on Monday.
When we're.
If that's the desire to go to
Yes,
25
yeah.
years.
Commissioner Madden, question.
So we make the amendment Monday,
Yes,
not today.
right.
Okay.
Commissioner McLeod.
And just a reminder, Teresa, the reason for that is because there are mobile homes in that age category that if we went with 10, you would exclude people from being able to use those that are between 10 and 25.
Yes, and it limits the inventory.
Okay.
So we've been told that there is not a lot of inventory for those newer mobile homes. So this would allow for mobile homes that still meet current codes, but gives them that flexibility to get some additional units in there.
Okay.
Commissioner McCarley and then Madden.
Sorry, I was just pointing to Mr. Music, had a question.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Music then.
So can we talk about it from a construction standpoint? Because I know that the mobile homes and the way that they're ordered, set up, and all that stuff is different. I mean, do we know, what is our reason for thinking that a 25-year as opposed to 20, 15, 18? What is the reason on that other than, say, affordability? And having worked on mobile homes that are older, I mean, 25 years can be a lot of life if it's, So it's like we have one restriction, and that is 25 years. It's not saying 25 years in a certain shape or a certain condition. So do we have other restrictions coming alongside that 25 years?
Yes, so changes in Florida Building Code as a result of Hurricane Andrew. So that shortens the length of time within which we would want to go back in terms of years. And should make the distinction, calling these mobile homes, it's manufactured homes is the general category that's used today.
I think the question though is there a criterion for quality of that home?
In terms of the condition of it.
Condition.
Well, yeah. So if it's a regular block or stick built home, right? I mean, we're sending out building officials, we're checking it, we're all along the process, we're doing that. Well, here they've got something that they're transporting onto site, and if they can check the box and say, well, this is 24 years old, it's good.
Right, so the permit, I believe, is limited to how the unit is secured on site and placed on foundation and secured. And I would look to Mr. Ruiz to confirm that, and he's nodding his head yes.
So it
And
does
electric
not
and
address-
sewer.
So from an aesthetic standpoint or from a structural, so because it's a mobile home or manufactured home, there's a different criteria level for that.
Correct.
Doesn't address the condition of the walls and the roof
Right.
or anything.
Which I mean, I've got 3 kids and 3 dogs. A 10-year-old unit could look bad in my possession as well. So age isn't the qualifier for sure, but okay, thank you.
And we still have, minimum housing standards within
Right.
the general city code that we could look to if conditions were that poor.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Teresa. So, and just for my colleagues' benefit, I think one of the things that, we hope to do is bring the voice of the citizens to the staff and have negotiations on rules that might look good on paper, but over time might not end up giving you the result that you hope for. And so, you know, I think if you've driven, you know, in certain areas of town, you see that there are landowners and business owners who have mobile home parks, trailers on land that are about 1950, you know, so, you know, 80 years old or 70 years old. And because they were precluded from replacing those, and they could still put a little paint on it and get a rent every month, why would they have any incentive to give up that business, you know, or why would they sell their business that's their retirement, you know, to just lose the money in a state, particularly like Florida, where we put a lot of stock in property owner rights as well. So the goal here is not to say we would love in our dream world to have 25-year-old, you know, mobile homes on a new piece of land and develop a new mobile home park. But we have mobile home parks that have been precluded from making any kind of incremental investments and still keep that affordable level of housing. If you can imagine, a new mobile home is going to cost them more, and those prices will no longer be affordable for that area of town that's been affordable. And we're looking at affordable options. So we kind of felt like mobile homes was low-hanging fruit on the affordable home, you know, situation. And, you know, looked back in the land code, and today is, I think, a celebration, and I'll probably say this again on Monday, of our team and our staff looking for ways to find a way to yes. And that's what we have asked them to do. And all of these things that we're going over are ways that they've looked at frustrations by developers, frustrations by citizens, heard by some of the commissioners or just through the community development department, and trying to make accommodations or come to find middle ground, you know, on what could be a suitable outcome, especially in an interim period of getting affordable housing and also getting possibly a better product in some of our areas of town. And so this is one of those. And then at the same time, you know, thinking about lot sizes and tiny homes and RVs and all of the other, you know, new ideas that people are having with the shipping containers and things like that to bring in affordable housing on new lands that people could do. So to Commissioner Music's point, it's, you know, this is not like planning for your best case scenario, but we've noticed in the past when we've done that, we've not really received what we hoped. Instead, we have a far worse situation because we precluded any investment at all. Another example is like the Garden District, where you had, you know, multifamily folks. We had so many layers to make it beautiful, Garden District, historic, that then they didn't replace the windows and they didn't do any improvements because the standards were so high and it was cost prohibitive based on the rents that they were receiving to be able to make any improvements at all. And so then you just find that neighborhood, you know, getting worse and worse instead of improving. Does that make sense? So I feel like that's kind of like the public reason for a lot of these is to really celebrate our staff and taking their expertise and looking at our land code and trying to find a win-win, you know, for property owners to get the best use in the, you know, that we can and make it better for Lakeland. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that for.
I appreciate that very much, that amplification very much. And it should be pointed out that a lot of this work's taken over a year to get done. There's a lot of time and investment in this process based on years of experience prior to that. We do not do these kinds of changes swiftly and without regard, and this is policy setting at its best. So thank you for the recommendations and for the flexibility for inclusion.
And again, Matt and his team were the ones that led this and drafted the changes and work with the code every day and know where there are improvements that are needed. So I appreciate their work on it.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Again, for clarification, a lot of these things run together. What number are we on exactly?
We are on item 5.
5. Okay, I've got comments about 5. I thought we went through there real quick.
She had done that because we'd asked for amplification on those two.
Okay.
And that's slide driven instead of point driven. So what's your question, sir?
But there again, it's ironic. I was meeting with people yesterday about tiny homes. And I think the code state says they can put them in mobile home parks. Is that right, Teresa?
Correct.
Nobody city in Lakeland is allowing them, the mobile home parks are not allowing them in their parks. And my understanding is the mobile home parks are not allowing tiny homes in their parks. And there again, what I wanted to address, if we're going to add about the RV parks, I think if we're going to have them in RV parks, they need to have the ones that have the wheels on them so they're mobile, as opposed to being a permanent structure.
That's what this addresses. So
Is that in here?
yes, these are specifically the ones that are brought in on a chassis. So these are more or less considered RVs. So the term tiny home has different meanings to different people. So this is dealing just with those mobile units, not with site-built tiny homes.
Well, you had a photograph of one of those in your slide last time.
Yes, you did.
Let's see if it's-
The wheels are off, right? Is that correct?
Yes. So I believe this is the example on
They
the
can put them
top
back,
here.
they can put them back on, I guess, and move them, but they're again,
Right.
okay,
Yes.
good.
They're movable, but
Right.
you pop the wheels.
Some are fixed, some are not, and there's two different types, and again, I just wanted to clarify. I haven't read the entire document.
Right, so someone could do a small-sized home, site-built, within a standard zoning, residential zoning district, outside of a mobile home or RV park. These are just the mobile units that we're talking about and allowing for them to be placed in these parks.
And this is something that hasn't necessarily come down from our requests from the citizens, but this is coming from state down. Is that a fair statement?
No, this one was really staff-driven and looking at options and where to allow these types of units.
This allows more quality for less cost and less footprint, and that's kind of the three drivers. Commissioner Music.
Do we have an example? Have any of you been to a location within a drivable distance that has got these, that's doing well? Commissioner Madden, have you seen anything out there?
Say that one more time.
Have you seen one of these working? Have you seen, is there an example we could drive and go see at some point that shows a?
So what we had talked about, I know I've talked to the team, is in other areas of the country, looking at best practices. They're taking a look at mobile home parks and different areas, that are trying to incorporate best practices for affordable housing, not just multifamily. And so a lot of them, because you already have your electricity, when you have your pads in mobile home parks, that's already developed. So you either sell that land and then they have to come and just totally reroute that and build multifamily. But if you could use existing pads and existing infrastructure to be able to facilitate a little movable tiny home. But so it's to take a look at the market and what the market is producing right now. And the market is starting to produce these mobile tiny homes. They're starting to produce modulars. They're starting to do shipping containers. So really, it's really future focused for our team. Not that we have it here right away, but to say we don't want our land code to preclude something cool that might be happening in other places. And they are taking old mobile home parks and to modernize them instead of looking like the same old mobile home parks. They have modern modular, mobile tiny homes. And so I think going to Jackson Hole and different recreational places, they're doing more of these mobile tiny homes. So that's just kind of a trend. And so I think
other than like a vacation spot, or do we know, are you familiar with any statewide?
No, I think that this is a new concept and a trend that's happening across the country, but not necessarily in Lakeland for sure yet.
There is a nearby example over in Hillsborough County. That community, though, was basically a new community developed with these type of RV tiny homes, and that's off of 301 north of I-4. And I cannot recall the name of that. It's in the Thonotosassa area, and the name of the park is Escape Tampa Bay.
Escape Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a new development with this in mind as opposed to renovating. Okay.
It was previously a mobile home park, but they removed all of the units and then manufactured new units and brought them in from out of state. But they are essentially RVs.
I have visited the Austin Community First site, which was an original RV park that has 250 units on it now. And that's a website that you can take a look at, and it's with, picket fences and walkable areas. It's beautiful. Commissioner McCarley.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was in California 5 years ago and stayed at a resort in the Napa Valley region, and that's what we stayed in, was the top picture, and it was beautifully done. It had pebbled walkways and fountains and flower beds and everything, but it had originally been an RV park that they converted into a resort, and it was really, really nice. So it's both ends of the spectrum, I think, and the opportunity for property owners to do it either or, like do an Escape Tampa Bay or affordable housing. It's really, really helpful. But what I wanted to say from earlier is this cleans up an unintended consequence, I think. So staff taking time to do this when the planning several years ago, this wasn't even on the radar. And sometimes our policies do have unintended consequences down the road, and so this is one of the things that will alleviate that. So I just wanted to say good job to the staff to thinking about this and sort of figuring and echo Commissioner Madden that it is forward thinking on how we can serve our community in the best way possible, especially the property owners, to give them some options.
And I can probably talk my wife into taking a research trip to Napa. So.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. It's ironic, I was in North Carolina last week, and I saw some up in North Carolina, and again, back to referring to the conversation yesterday I had with some people. I guess they're trying to do one down near Mulberry, and they're having quite a bit of pushback from the county about getting 6 units per acre for some reason. But the one that you talked about over in Tampa, I think it was a student from University of South Florida was going there, and I think that unit, he had almost $90,000 in that one particular unit with landscaping and everything there. They're not necessarily really affordable.
Right.
Yeah, judging by the vehicles that were parked in front of the units, there was Tesla, some other Lexus, some other high-end vehicles, so yes, they were not necessarily affordable.
As I mentioned last week when we were talking about this, there again, the same guy was talking about modifying the sheds to modify, and he affirmed yesterday that he could take 2 10 by 30s and modify them, re-roof them, and deliver one for $50,000, and it meets Southern Building Code. Now that's affordable, in my opinion. Would be a 600 square foot unit, which is pushing the threshold of our tiny homes. But I think 800 feet is our threshold, correct?
For site built, it is 650.
650 square feet.
Pardon me?
For site built, it's 650 square feet.
Because this wouldn't be.
660 square feet.
Like a mobile home, they'd bring them together and do some wall modification and re-roof it and stuff like that. But would that be considered a site built?
It depends on
bring them
the,
all together, they've already.
yes, well, it depend on the construction methods, so not having the details on that, it sounds like it would be, but if he's manufacturing these off-site, and then how he's placing them on-site with the foundation, that would determine what type of construction.
Would they have to be on a slab too?
For the site built, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and to the point about the Teslas in front of units like this, we also need to recognize that part of the younger demand is a minimalist-driven lifestyle. And so it's not going to be so surprised that people that want a smaller space to live in and have to take care of, that have more economic capacity too, will also choose these. And I know City Manager Strauss has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to mention a couple of things. As a very close location where you can go see some tiny homes that have been implemented is if you take Highway 92, go through Auburndale over to the Winter Haven Airport, right across from the Winter Haven Airport on a lake there was an old mobile home park that was in terrible condition, and that was converted in the last couple of years and is now an RV park and has tiny homes there. So that's a location, and those seem to be the more affordable type of tiny homes. The other thing that I would suggest, I'm a fan of the TV show The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis, and one of his most recent episodes, he invests in a company that makes tiny homes. And in that show, he challenges them to make 3 different units, because initially they were just making a high-end unit. So he challenged them to make a lower affordable unit, a middle tier, and a high-end. And it's a pretty interesting show. So if you have a chance, you might want to check that out. It's timely for this conversation.
Good comments. All right, you want to take item number 3 then? Are we going back to 3?
3 was the, let's see, which one was that?
It's plating requirements, subdivision, splitting lots.
Oh, so we did want to go through all of them?
Well, do you want to go through them all or wait for the meeting? The ones we had questions on, she's addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's addressed the ones that we'll have big questions about, so.
Commissioner Reed, do you have any others you want to? You're good. Okay, then you're finished. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we are Community Redevelopment Agency A.
We actually have one just regular old zoning change. The number 8 is relating to the demolition and reorientation of the Southwest Middle School campus.
On this item, I did want to clarify the use of portables, which came up at the last agenda study. There was an exhibit included in the application that showed portables basically in the interior of the track field. And that was, I think, just for illustrative purposes in the event that they were ever to need to relocate the portables during construction. So we asked them to revise that exhibit, and they have removed the portables from.
And therefore, we would
This area.
need to approve the portables at a later date.
Correct.
That's good. Questions? Commissioner Music.
I have a question that has nothing to do with this, but it has to do with this, and it just reminded me, so I thought I'd bring it up. I was canvassing the neighborhood last weekend, and on the corner, the picture I'm looking on the left is existing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you take your pointer and you go right into the center of the track, and then now you come over to the east, right about, well, it's actually, it might be that little shed. You see that little, there's a little box. Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going to the next
one over
box.
to the right.
This one?
Yeah, right there. I think it's that. There's chickens in there.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's
right.
I hear them roosters
Okay,
crow in the morning.
so the neighbor, as we were talking, and he said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to it." I thought maybe he would be, upset about the construction redevelopment. He was excited about it. He had seen the stuff, but he said those things are, and I'm not a FFA, so they're chickening all day, all night. He said somebody has got to help me do something. He said they are obnoxious. So as somebody who does love I think it's part of our state. But anyway, that made me remember the comment that I told him I would get with somebody on. It's bad, he said. So I'm just relaying what a citizen has expressed to me. So
I did ask early on because I find the sound endearing when I hear them off in the distance. I did ask previously if those were remaining on site, and they said yes, but I can find out where exactly it will be located on campus.
We could tie that in with our noise ordinances.
I can actually, I know the ag teacher.
Yeah.
I'll text her
yeah. So
and ask her. I know the FFA agriculture teacher, so I'll just reach out to her personally and see if there's a barrier for chickens, for noise.
I think the way they've reconstructed or are going to reconstruct the campus, it certainly won't be out in that field where it is now. Everything is more turned inward for the buildings, so I think that should help.
yeah, bounce some stuff out because there it's just open. I mean, the
Right.
sound doesn't have anything to stop it. So, and he wasn't crazy upset. He was just since he had my ear, since he had, he was so.
He's in town.
Yeah. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Reed.
Thank you. I think Palmer will attest, we have an ordinance about chickens, but it may be in the residential area, not necessarily on school property. Is that a fair statement?
Well, yes, we do. We actually have a prohibition on keeping roosters in the city altogether. The school board is exempt from certain things, but for most people, roosters are not allowed, as opposed to chickens, regular chickens.
Located on it right now, but if they push on the one side or the other, somebody is residential on the east and the west is going to probably we'll be hearing from them, no doubt.
That's an interesting discovery. Commissioner Reed.
Yes, and not to overtake this discussion about chickens, but we, as a family, used to have had several backyard flocks. We don't have any currently, but hens should not be that loud. If they have roosters, that's a different story. And as far as away as they are from those houses, unless they're letting them free range and go into the yards, and that could be.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
I'm curious. I'd love to hear more because.
Yeah.
I'll text her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and anyway, it was just interesting, and I you know, we often get questions, and I'm glad that this triggered my memory to ask that. So.
All right. Any other-
Christina Camp hasn't run up here yet, being our own
Chicken person, yeah.
Okay. All right, next item.
All right, I think that's all the ordinances. The first item under CRA, I believe you all are very familiar with where Parker Street Ministries is located at the corner of Massachusetts and Parker Street. The CRA purchased this property from the Methodist Church back in 2010 for $500,000. It was appraised at $995,000 at the time. We purchased it subject to a lease agreement, an existing lease agreement with a purchase option in favor of Parker Street Ministries. And so that lease continued with Parker Street Ministries even though it was owned by the CRA. The Park Street Ministries paid rent to the CRA for a couple of years up until February 2012 in the total amount of $25,000. They also made substantial improvements to the property in excess of $1.1 million, which we've all seen on the ground there. So they decided to exercise their purchase option under that lease agreement in 2012. So the CRA entered into a 10-year interest-free balloon mortgage with Parker Street Ministries in 2012. So they did not have to make any payments, but the note was going to become due in full on February 22nd of 2022 in the amount of $147,580. So that is rapidly approaching. So Tim Mitchell approached the CRA about trying to restructure that, and specifically he had asked that we do a 10-year declining balance forgivable loan to extend this out to February of 2032. That was taken to the CRA Advisory Board, and the Advisory Board decided that it would be more appropriate to just simply go ahead and forgive that balance at this point in time, rather than have an additional 10-year declining balance forgivable loan. The staff's recommendation was based on the Park Street Ministries continue to perform, their charitable activities in the neighborhood. I think there's a feeling that they're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to do that, and so that there's really probably not a whole lot to be served by delaying the forgiveness of that note over the next 10 years. So that was the recommendation of the CRA Advisory Board. A little bit different from staff's recommendation, but I think staff could get on board with that recommendation as well. Yes.
Having served on that CRA in 2010 that worked to make this possible, having watched the $1 million+ investment that Parker Street Ministries has done and the services provided, I think this is a wonderful suggestion.
They've completely transformed that Parker Street area over Mitchell's time there, so it's certainly a worthy suggestion.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. They're good. I think they do a great job too. I just wonder if we're setting any kind of precedence for this. People are going to start asking this on a continuous basis. There again, it's a source of revenue, and there again, that's my only concern is you do it for one, and all of a sudden you're going to start doing it for everyone.
Well, a good precedence that it would set is for anybody that would want to do something likewise like this and put $1 million of investment in the process. 10 years later, have a review for something like this that provided services. I don't know. We'd want to stop that precedence if it occurred. No
doubt, they've done some improvements. I'm just looking down the road.
Correct. Good call. Other comments?
Mayor.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Just the discussions on the CRA board were the same thing that we're saying now. I think there was, at first, maybe there was the thought of precedent and what does this mean for others, but as people talked about what Parker Street has done in the community and that contribution, if we went with the staff recommendation of over 10 years and we're headed toward forgiveness anyway, let's just go ahead and do that. And that received unanimous support from the board and I think for the reasons that have been mentioned.
So we can leave that on. Any other discussion on this? If we could bring it up on Monday. Okay. Next.
All right, the next item is the selection of a developer to negotiate a development and disposition agreement with relating to the Oak Street parking lot. And Jared from our office is going to introduce that, and we have some slides to show what's going on and outline the at least initial terms that we're going to be negotiating the agreement under.
Welcome, Jared.
Thank you. Jared Simpson with the City Attorney's Office. This is an item where we are requesting approval to move forward with negotiations in the order of rankings as recommended by the selection committee that convened on September 30th. The Lakeland Community Redevelopment Agency owns this parcel. It's a 1.49 acre city block north of Oak Street, east of Tennessee, south of Peachtree, and west of Kentucky, and it's currently being used as a parking lot, so we're referring to it as the Oak Street parking lot. You can see it on the slide above. Back in December of 2018, the CRA was approached by a developer that had interest in developing the site as a dense urban multifamily residential project with the potential of incorporating some mixed-use elements. And so in response to that interest, there was an RFQ put out at the time, and a firm was selected, Catalyst Asset Management. However, after a year of negotiations, we were unable to ink a deal with Catalyst, and they withdrew their proposal. So we put out another RFP in July of 2021, and we received two proposals, one from True Investors Development and the other from Onyx Group. The selection committee convened on September 30 of this year to evaluate, and they ranked those two firms, with Onyx Group being the first ranked and True Investors being the second ranked. And it was also unanimously recommended that if we were unable to negotiate with the first firm, that we be allowed to automatically move on to the second firm so that we can get a deal done here. The proposal that was ranked first, the Onyx Group proposal, is a 6-story precast concrete parking garage with a 5-story wood frame. Help me figure out the technology here. Here's a picture of the site plan. There would be 400 total parking spaces in the garage, and 150 of those would be leased back to the city. The lease term that they're proposing for those parking spaces would be a 25-year lease at a rate of $75 per month per space, with a 5% escalation every 5 years. As you can see, the multifamily development would be on the perimeter of the garage, and the access to the garage would be in through Peachtree. They're proposing for the multifamily development, they're proposing 153 units, with 10% of those to be offered for affordable housing. And there would be 3,000 square feet of retail space on the corner of Kentucky, which they are offering to be used as part of the farmers market as well, with this open plaza here. For their financial terms and conditions, they're proposing a purchase price of $1,080,000. They're requesting a TIF agreement, the tax increment financing. They're requesting a 90% abatement of the taxes for years 1 through 5 and 70% for years 6 through 10. I don't know if you had a slide on that or not. They do, okay. And then they're also requesting full impact fee credits for all city and county impact fees, including water and sewer. At the selection committee meeting, Brian Ruiz pointed out that if we do waive those, we're not able to waive them, actually. We would have to pay for them through another funding source. They're also requesting, I think that's it for their finance. And then the timelines. The timelines, they're asking for to have the development agreement executed by March 31, and then permitted. The project would be permitted by September 30th, 2022, and the whole project would be completed by March 31, 2024. And so it's the recommendation that The City Commission acting as the CRA give the city staff approval to begin negotiations with Onyx Group. And based on their proposed deadline of having an agreement by March 31, we would ask that if we're unable to reach an agreement with Onyx Group by that day, that we would be allowed to move on to the second-ranked firm, True Investors.
Is this 3 stories for the housing?
The housing is a 5-story wood frame, and with the parking garage being 6 stories.
So you probably won't see the parking garage over the tops of the roofs if they're 5 stories, I wouldn't think, from the 3 sides.
We didn't get a 3D render, I don't believe, but based on the fact that it's internal and on the north side of the project, and I guess that would reduce the visibility of it.
And 5 stories requires elevators all the way through. Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod and then Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. So this is the same number of parking spaces we currently have in that lot,
We have 150 on the ground in that lot, so that's, I think, where they're getting their proposal to offer 150 for lease back to the city.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I have some questions. Do we have any idea where the location of these spaces is going to be? They're going to be open spaces, top floor, bottom floor?
The city, that was not specified in the proposal, but that is something that we could, I presume we could negotiate as part of the agreement with them.
What is the cost of the impact fees we're going to be having to pay ourselves? Probably about the purchase price of the land?
Well, good morning. For the record, Brian Ruiz, Community and Economic Development. I actually we have not calculated the, water, wastewater impact fees. They're based on the number of units in the development. We'd have to get with the water utility to calculate that. My point during the selection committee meeting that Jared mentioned was that because of the nature of our utility impact fees, as opposed to our non-utility impact fees, which are waived under certain circumstances, we have to pay the utility impact fees. They have debt service associated with them, so they cannot be waived. They have to be paid from some source. We can get that information for you, I assume, very easily. Robbie's here in the room. Maybe he can get it for us before agenda study's over.
Thank you.
Based on 100 and...
As I've gotten to see, I'm trying to think, when we did
53
apartments right up here, what was our abatement? I think it was only a 5-year abatement, wasn't it, right up here?
You're talking about Merton or?
Just the new ones.
The gardens?
Yeah.
Gardens,
I think
the gardens...
was only 50%, then 25%, and that was over a 5-year period?
The Gardens apartment project was a more generous TIF than standard. I don't remember the exact terms, but even this is more than that. Right. Correct. This is a higher ask than we have approved in the past. But remember, the action we'll be requesting of the commission acting as the CRA on Monday is to approve us to move forward to negotiate. So you are not approving exactly what they're asking for in full.
Okay, good. And then will we have to do any utility movement in addition to this at our cost? We don't know that either, do we?
We do not.
And lastly, again, this is kind of on the fringe. I like seeing development a little bit to the north. I think we're charging $70 a square foot right now for stuff that, or we're renting it out for $70 a square foot in a little more prime space. I'd like for Jason to maybe be here, but he's not here today. But I don't know if $75 is excessive for that particular location. But maybe we can.
You're talking about square footage or parking spaces?
Parking spaces.
Ah, yes. And there are leases in that lot, so those leases will survive or be taken over by those lessors once the spaces are made available. And we'll make note of your very appropriate question as to the location of those spaces by floor of the parking garage to make those a part of the negotiations with the developer. Open
spaces are like $35, and they're going to be covered spaces, I assume. will they still get their paces for $35 or it's going to
Well, I don't want to kickstart the negotiations in agenda study, but I would think that that we would do our very best to make sure that the lease payments paid by the city for those spaces was covered or simply a pass-through for the ultimate lessor of the space.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to some heated debate later on.
I would add the comment to Commissioner Reed's concerns that it seems like we might want to have a cap on what we would accept as an amount of waiver with respect to impact fees because of what we may not anticipate we run into in the process.
And we definitely have had caps, for example, for Meriton. We had an absolute cap on the entire incentives regardless of what form they took.
So that would be anticipated probably.
Oh, of course, once we move from the action on Monday and really get into the weeds with the developer and start to hammer that out, what we bring back to the commission will undoubtedly have a not to exceed contribution from the CRA and or the city.
Second concern I would have is we're TIF rich and affordable housing low in terms of percentage. Okay, so both of those things seem to me to be things we ought to think about making certain, we're giving a lot in this. And so both of those are pressures that as we get to final negotiations, I would encourage their greater consideration for. And if they need to be giving on one of those things or the others, probably. I'm not trying to presuppose their economic break-evens.
No, we absolutely appreciate whatever comments and feedback the commission has. That strengthens our position to go back to the developer and say, look, that this isn't just staff saying that we need more affordable units in order to justify the level of subsidy or assistance or incentive that you're requesting in making this development a reality.
Well, I think those are strong considerations from certainly my perspective. And the 150 spaces that are leased today, what happens to that parking lot today after dark or, in the evening?
I believe it's open to the public.
And
yes, sir.
So would those 150 spaces also be open to the public?
At times when they are not leased at present, yes, sir.
Okay, so that would also mean that it would be good to have those be on the lower floors for public accessibility, because I think it's difficult for people to think about going up to other higher levels, and they may even want to gate them for the higher levels to preclude that, so that the residents would be in the higher levels of the lot.
Understood.
Ideally. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, the 10% affordable housing, was that the amount in the RFP that we put out, or is that what they came back with?
If memory serves, we did not require affordable housing, but we provided additional points in the selection committee's scoring for affordable housing units. And we didn't specify a percentage, but in this case, they provided a number to get at least some additional weight to their score.
Yes, sir.
One other thought. And I hear what the mayor's saying. I just want to be sure that we don't lean into that too much and require, we're asking for more affordable housing to where it's not economically feasible. I know when this project went out for request before, that was some of the feedback that I heard from developers was our expectation is too high for what we can do economically. So I want us to keep that in mind kind of as a counterpoint going forward.
And I expect that to really be the foundation, if not the tone of the entire negotiation is what the developer feels the market and the structure of the deal will support long term.
Sure. I like it. I think this is a great project, and to get it into negotiations and then seeing what could be developed, as Commissioner Reed said, on the north side of downtown where we currently just have a surface lot. So excited to see what the team can come up with in the deal you can reach.
Yes, sir.
Sean.
City Manager Strauss.
To that point, Commissioner, when it was this RFP that after we had received some of the same comments based on past experience, where we had a meeting one day to determine how we would adjust the request in the RFP, and so rather than prescribing what would be required, we simply allowed the respondents to tell us what would feasibly work for them, and then as Mr. Ruiz explained, there was a grading based upon what we received.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Music?
Yeah, I mean, to me, right now, it looks like a win-win. I'm unsure, you know, I mean, there's so many positives about it that look good. I mean, obviously, we're only approving negotiations, but, you know, I think that the questions that the mayor raised are certainly things that I would second for sure. But, I mean, I love the idea of that. Do we have an appraised value of the property at this point?
I don't recall.
We had the property appraised, I believe, and I'll just have to try to pull it up. I believe it was 900,000, but it was a few years ago, 2019, I believe, but I just want to try to find it in my email just to be sure.
While he's looking for that, just pulled up the memo that we did for the TIF agreement for the garden apartments across from Barnett Park. And the commission approved an agreement for 100% TIF reimbursement for years 1 and 2 and 50% for year 3. And then nothing after that.
Okay, yes, it was appraised at $13.87 per square foot of land area for a total of 900,000, and that was in April of 2019, and the appraisal was performed by the Reed Appraisal Company.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Madden, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to ask about the parking. It looks like, you know, between 2020, you know, next March or next September, by the time permitting starts, it looks like we're going to miss out on a lot of parking for quite some time with regard to our Saturday market. I know that usually packs out for our Saturday market. So what is your plan to mitigate that loss of parking during that time?
Well, we have not spoken specifically with the developer or with Jason or the LDDA about what we may do on a temporary basis like we did while the Heritage Garage was under construction to provide for that parking. So I can't commit today, but we'll definitely put our heads together with Julie and see what we can't figure out. May involve some of the stuff north of Lakeland Police Department, which is some CRA owned, some privately owned, but we may be able to bring some temporary parking solution in that area.
There's probably some additional parking still available, because if you go on Farmers Market on Saturday, look at the Heritage Garage, it's not well utilized, you know, and so there's more we're still not thinking in terms of getting into what we have and making that, which is your whole point about availabilities when people can go.
I mean, I think people are used to going straight to that Oak Lot because you're right there in the heart of the area, but certainly wayfinding is possible.
Commissioner Music.
Do we know where those developers are based?
Tampa.
Onyx Group is Tampa, but they are working with some Lakeland companies.
Steve Boynton's doing the architecture, I understand.
Onyx is also doing a hotel project in downtown Winter Haven. You may have seen Robbie Kniss from the water utility come down. He confirmed for me those wastewater utility impact fees, at least for the units, the residential units, is $453,000. That does not include additional impact fees for any fire line infrastructure that may also be on the property. So, you know, in the area of $500,000.
Easy. Commissioner Mann.
Just for context, I also just wanted to bring up that, you know, during the negotiations, obviously we want you to negotiate the best possible deal that you can. But I will just reiterate to my colleagues that we've lost 2.5 years of developing that lot because two different, you know, developers were given an opportunity to give their best pencil sharpening, not finding that it was financially feasible to build what they wanted to build. And so here we are again, and it will be another 3 years before, if this goes perfectly. So, you know, then that's 5.5 years that it takes to develop that you know, fairly small piece of property and get those units. So, you know, it's not a quick process to add the units that we desperately need. And when times are good, you want to do them as, you know, many as you can, because then that's what you'll live with when times aren't as good. So, just as another considering factor, you know, certainly we always want the best case scenario, but negotiations are just that. You don't always get exactly everything you want, but certainly we would like to have that project happen.
And in that 2.5 years, really the landscape of downtown and the market overall has changed. And I would say a lot of the uncertainty where COVID is concerned that impacted Catalyst's attempts to develop on the last RFP now, hopefully have been minimized.
Agree. Commissioner Music.
Just a springboard off of that just a little bit. One of the interesting things that we're hearing out on the campaign trail are questions about how quickly we move, or we're getting affordable housing that's not quality affordable housing. And this is a good example of where something not working and us going back to the drawing board and stuff is showing that we are being diligent, and but time is time. I mean, it takes time to do things, but we're also being diligent in reviewing and having staff look at it and then coming back to us. And so I appreciate time sometimes, because they're always talking about pushing the pause or slowing things down. And I think that, yes, we lost some time. We could almost be done on a lot of this stuff, but I would prefer a lot of times to push it a little slower. So,
well, and to that end,
intentionality is important.
To the end of the criticism of not having quality affordable housing, I think you all have done a remarkable job in the quality of affordable housing that we have built and in ensuring that. And so I'm, this isn't that large project, it's 10% of those units, but for the units that we have done that filled like that, that's indicative of the high quality that exists, and we want that to continue.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about 10% of the units being that affordable. It's not like they're going to pick those 10 and say, we're not going to build those as nice as we're building the other ones, right? I mean, it's the same quality. It's just we've set some aside for those that need the more affordable option. So.
Correct. Okay, good. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Simpson?
I would just conclude by reminding the commission that if we're given authority to move forward in negotiation, we would bring back an agreement for the commission to review, and we're requesting that April 1 be the deadline for the first firm, and if we're unable to bring something back by then, we would move on to the second firm.
Can that deadline be any sooner? Should that deadline be any sooner?
That was their requested deadline. Okay. I think staff feels that it's appropriate.
It doesn't preclude us from getting to a conclusion sooner, certainly.
No, we could bring, if they're
the only
agreeable.
thing I would ask is that if the negotiations with the first one fail, is that we get an email or something that says, hey, we've moved on to number 2 or whatever, just for our continuity of thought.
Sure. Right. Commissioner Reed.
When, Monday, can you give us some suggestions on where these impact fees might come from that we're going to have to make up? Sort of revenue source?
We'll try to get a calculation for that. He's saying that we might have to make up that. A reminder that we're just asking authority to negotiate. We're not giving up. We're not giving away the farm just yet.
Well, and I really believe that's important for us. So I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer in this. I just think it's very, very important for us that we get a deal that is profitable for them, but also not too costly to ourselves and meets our objectives. And so the more willing they are to participate on the front end of those negotiations in a reasonable mode in the middle, the more certain I'm sure we will want to approve it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, what's next, sir? That's the end of CRA.
City manager at this point.
City manager, yes, sir. That's you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, commissioners. I just have one item for presentation this morning. It's regarding the Lakeland Police Department mobile command vehicle request. The Lakeland Police Department is requesting to purchase a mobile command vehicle to be used during city events and emergency operations. Currently, the LPD possesses a 31-year-old antiquated Bluebird bus purchased decades ago. It was originally used as a bookmobile bus that was modified as a stopgap command vehicle about 15 years ago. This vehicle was never programmed into the replacement fund due to its condition, and it has reached a point where it is not practical to keep it as part of the fleet. Given the number of significant city events, things like the Christmas Parade, Sun Fun, July 4th celebrations and others, and emergency operations that the LPD coordinates annually, having a mobile command vehicle will enable them to allow the incident command team a centralized location to oversee the operations. These events take place all over the city limits, as you're aware, in the downtown, out at the airport, Tigertown, Lake Morton, and other areas around the city. So having the mobile vehicle is a necessity. The command post is a highly important component of a successful critical incident response in the field, as it serves as the central point of intelligence gathering, staff planning, and command control of the overall operation at hand. A clearly defined command post is in keeping with the best practices of the law enforcement profession and in line with the national model of the incident command system deployed by both police and fire at major scenes and events. Based on staff's review, it's recommended to purchase a command vehicle through Faber Specialty Vehicles for $289,979. This quote is based on the specifications that the LPD provided to meet their operational and budgetary requirements. The city's purchasing department has approved the purchase of the vehicle as a cooperative purchase pursuant to Omnia Partners Public Sector contract. Omnia Partners Public Sector serves as a municipal contracting agency that enables cities and other governmental agencies to cooperatively procure equipment, products, and services in order to receive volume pricing discounts. The funding for this vehicle will be derived from the federal law enforcement trust funds received by the city and the Lakeland Police Department. So staff will be recommending that the City Commission authorize the acquisition of this asset. I think the item's fairly straightforward. Chief Garcia is out of town at the moment, but we do have Assistant Chief Hans Lehman with us if there are any questions.
My question would be, sir, and if you wouldn't mind taking my, is this adequate enough? And why, in other words, compare this to what else also you might have considered.
Good morning, Assistant Chief Lehman. There are other command vehicles. You could spend upwards of $1 million on a command vehicle depending on what you need. Tampa PD, Hillsborough Sheriff's Office, they have much larger ones. This one will do what we need it to do, I think, and it allows us the mobility. So I think it's a good match. Good match, yes.
Great. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you. Can you remind me, Sean or Chief Lehman, the Federal Law Enforcement Trust Fund, what is that? How do we get money from that?
That's from our asset forfeiture, from long-term drug investigations, anything that's used like in commission of a felony, seized vehicles, anything like that we seize and we receive funding from. We have 2 detectives on task forces with the DEA. So on long-term drug investigations, that's where that money comes from. And we use it to buy equipment like this. We've used it for ballistic helmets after the Pulse shooting in 2016 for protective gear for our folks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reed.
What are we going to do with the old one? We'll have 2?
No, I think it's going to go to auction.
We can make a food truck.
we could do some, have some fun with that.
It was a mobile commission.
We'll let you drive it. It was a great vehicle for what it did for us, but.
I've seen that unit. It was,
yes.
This one's a little bit smaller, is it not?
Yes, the current one we have a divider in it, so our crisis negotiation team could use a portion of it, and then the front side of it would be the mobile command side. We replaced a van recently that our crisis negotiation team will be able to use separately, so we can actually keep both components separate. So this will do what we need it to do from the front side of it.
This will be parked out of the airport then?
Yes, we'll keep it in a hangar so it's out of the weather, and we'll get a good 20 years out of it.
Commissioner Music.
Yeah, 2 things on that. One, I literally just had somebody the other day ask, and we were reminiscing about bookmobiles and what's going on with those. But you know, this is a testament to a couple things. One, how well and long we use things, you know, but yet we also get to the point to where we say, hey, we need to step up our game. So it's a little teeter-totter that seems to be going well. So I always appreciate the frugality of how long we make things last, but ultimately we need to come up to the 20th century, yes. 21st now, and just put this one behind. So,
City Manager Strauss.
No, have anything else on this item, sir. Just verbal after.
What did you say you were going to do with the used unit?
It'll go to auction.
Okay.
We'll give it to
Just
fleet,
cash.
and it'll go to auction. Yes, sir.
All right, for what you can get for it.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Before we move on, I just, one quick verbal, just want to thank the commission for your support of both myself and our assistant city manager, Emily Colon, week before last, having the ability to go out to Portland, Oregon for the International City County Management Association Conference. It was a good conference, and we got to meet with colleagues and have a lot of good training sessions for professional development while we were there. The commission, as you're all aware, I saw some parklets while I was out there. I sent some photographs back of those, and so it was neat to see that. They're very similar to the ones that we think we'll see here in our city. So again, just appreciate that support. And then I also want to thank you personally for allowing me the time off for the vacation following the conference. And I want to thank both Nicole Travis and Emily Colon for managing the operations in my absence. There were just a few phone calls and texts, but other than that, they handled it all right here and allowed me to get away, and I very much appreciate it, and thank you again for the time away.
Well, you needed that time to rest, turning 50 and all. No, that's
Nicole
great.
did excellent, so.
Yes, they did wonderfully. Appreciate it. I'm sorry to undo a serious moment, so I apologize. All right, any other comments at all with respect to the Portland? Okay. That brings us then down to the next city attorney items.
All right, the first item is the resolution exempting the different positions from the civil service system that we talked about. Second item is vacating a public utility and drainage easement at 2428 Hollingsworth Hill Avenue. There's I didn't get this in the overhead slide, but at the very end of the agenda item, you should be able to see an aerial view that shows what's going on here. Looks like this property bought a portion of the lot just to the east of it and installed a pool on that added portion of the property that's separate from the main house. And there's a drainage and utility easement that runs north-south that's separating the main house from the pool. They have some plans to pull all that together, so they needed to vacate the utility easement at that location. They've already provided a replacement utility easement for all our facilities, and all of our utility providers are satisfied with that replacement utility easement, so we're recommending that you vacate that easement.
Yeah. Any questions by commissioners? All right, next item.
The next item, Jared is going to address also. This is just an amendment to our different fire fees pursuant to the fire prevention code that we just adopted a few months ago.
It's what we pulled from the last agenda, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Jared Simpson with the City Attorney's Office for the record. If you recall, in the beginning of the summer, we adopted the Florida Fire Prevention Code, and we, at the time, did not intend to adjust the fees in any way. Over the summer, some current concerns were raised about some large permit fees, and so the fire department and the city manager's office took a closer look at the fee schedule to see if there was any opportunity to address the concerns of the customers. So we are making recommendations to adjust 3 line items within the fee schedule. The first would be for the fire alarm detection systems that are new, and the modification of fire alarm detection systems that have 21 or more devices. Those fees would be reduced from $200 per 25,000 square foot down to $100 per 25,000 square foot. And for the third change would be for two-way radio communication enhancement systems that are new installs. That would be reduced from $200 per 25,000 square foot down to $100 as well. And because this concern was raised and some of those permits are pending, we're asking that this be applied retroactively to that adoption of the fire code so that we could give that relief to the customers that are currently in the queue as well.
That date being the retroactive.
We did not put the specific date in the
I believe
resolution.
The latest version of the fire code was adopted April 4th.
April, okay, of this year.
Yes.
Okay. Questions? Next. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Commissioner Madden.
I mean, I just think that it's important that we always make note when we're reducing fees.
Yes, very good.
Thank you very much for going and listening to citizens and customers and making adjustments. I appreciate that.
Very
Credit
good.
all to the fire department and city manager's office for taking a look at that.
All right, the next item is simply delegating the authority to manage the investments in the retiree health savings plan to the city's general employees pension plan board of directors. They're already managing various different funds related to our different pension options, at least 3 of those. And so it makes sense for them to just handle the funds that are within the retiree health savings plan as well. So that's what this resolution is accomplishing.
Questions? All right, next.
All right, I think we're down to C3 under city attorney. With the first 2 were on consent. Excuse me. Number 3 is a task authorization with Kaminga Rudvets for construction services. What we are doing is replacing 2 10-inch sewer mains that run from the frontage road just to the east of Oak Bridge and run up north behind Oak Ridge, once again to the east, and connect in with a 20-inch force main that goes on up to the southwest pump station at Edgewood and Sand Gully Road. So we're replacing the 2 10-inch lines with 1 20-inch line, and that will be more compatible with the 20-inch line that it connects with. And this is going to allow more capacity in that line. It also allows water utilities to switch the direction of the flow, which gives them the ability to take certain segments offline and do repairs when necessary.
Nice.
There were 2 responses to the invitation to bid. Kaminga and Rudvets out of Tampa and Killebrew out of Lakeland. Kaminga and Rudvets was $995,939. Killebrew was about $900,000 more than that at $1.8 million. Chastain, Skillman, and city staff have evaluated Kaminga and Rudvets' bid, and they find it to be a responsive bid, and obviously it's the lowest bid, so that we're recommending to enter into a task authorization with Kaminga and Rudvets for this work. It's budgeted in the water utilities 2022 budget through a loan agreement with the state revolving fund loan. Robbie Kniss is in the audience if you have any technical questions about this project, and there's a map in the agenda item that shows you where this line extension is going to be. It's the orange section there. To the left is a yellow, and then it's the next line that you see in orange. That's where this work's going to occur. That's once again just to the east of the Oak Ridge development.
Questions on this at all? That's great to be able to have that offline capacity if they have to work on some portions as well.
All right, number 5 is also a task authorization with Kaminga and Rudvets, and this is for work to upgrade force mains, install new force mains, larger force mains along Skyview Drive associated with the Skyview development. There are actually 2 different force main replacements that are under this task authorization. The first is a new 10-inch force main along Skyview Drive from Reynolds Road to 5 Iron Drive. And the second replacement would be the replacement of a 3-inch line that is quite a bit undersized with a 6-inch force main just to the, I believe just to the south of Skyview Drive. And both of these will allow greater capacity and fix a problem in that area of inflow and infiltration where stormwater is getting into the sewer system and causing overflows, and also takes up capacity at the plant ultimately. So this is important to fix inflow and infiltration. We issued an invitation to bid and received 3 different bids. Kaminga and Rudvets out of Tampa, TB Landmark Construction out of Jacksonville, and Killebrew out of Lakeland. Kaminga and Rudvets bid was $1,009,650. Killebrew was out of Lakeland was $1,264,950, which is greater than the difference allowed under our local preference ordinance. So we are recommending that the task authorization be with Kaminga and Rudvets. It's been evaluated again, and they were deemed responsible bidders by our engineer of record, Chastain Skillman, as well as city staff. This is included in Water Utilities 2022 budget and recommended for your approval. Again, Robbie Kniss is here if you have any technical questions.
Commissioner Music.
Have we, and I apologize if this is here and I just missed it, have we worked with this company before?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a long-standing company.
Other questions? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the timeline for this project?
Robbie Kness, Engineering Manager for Water Utilities. On all of our jobs, and I don't know the number directly, but usually we list about 270 days for typical construction jobs. So I would say that one's in that order. Usually it's 270 to get to substantial completion, additional 30 days to get to final completion. So most jobs last about 300 days. So I'd say this will be on the order of a year. And if they finish sooner, that's good too. That's what we allot them to do, work in.
Thank you.
What do you like best about this project?
I guess the improvements to the area. We took Skyview over, I don't know, a number of years ago, 5-10 years ago. There was a bit of work that was done before we took it over. Still a lot of deficiencies in the area. And so these two projects will be the first steps in fixing some of those continuing deficiencies.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, any other questions at all? Great. Next.
All right, next is a request to approve the list of different firms that we hope to use for planning, design, and development services, particularly the community development and community and economic development department, and approval of the standard continuing contract that we will enter into with each of these firms. We issued an RFQ pursuant to the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act and received a total of 12 firms responding to that RFQ. Selection committee convened consisting of CRA members, Community Development and Public Works Department members to evaluate the bids. And ultimately, after evaluating all 12 of the bids, it was just determined that each of these firms bring something to the table. They have different areas of expertise. And so the recommendation is to go ahead and enter into continuing contracts with all 12 of the firms. The continuing contract would be for an initial term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options upon mutual agreement of the parties. So that is recommended for your approval. I think Teresa could answer any questions, or Brian, if you
comments or
have
questions.
further questions.
Seeing none.
I think we're down to Utility Committee, and Ramona's going to address a couple of items that were not on consent.
Ramona Siriani for the City Attorney's Office. 2 utility items remaining. The first here is agreement with Schneider Electric Smart Grid Solutions LLC. This is for an upgrade of Lakeland Electric's existing graphical work order electronic distribution design application. This is also referred to as a software package known as Designer, and this is the tool that Lakeland Electric staff, engineers, and technicians use to design and maintain LE's transmission, distribution, and lighting system. The existing Lakeland Electric Designer version 10.6.1 is fully integrated with our GIS system, as well as interfaces with Maximo. The current version, however, is going to end up being de-supported by Schneider at the end of 2023, which is why it's critical to go ahead and upgrade that now. Without upgrading to a newer version, the city is exposed to security and operational concerns. The city's purchasing department has approved Schneider because it is the original system provider as a sole source supplier for the work. And pursuant to the agreement, there again are upgrades to the GIS and extension from version 10.6.1 to version 10.8.1 for continued support services. Also an upgrade from 10.6.1 to version 11 to interface with the GIS version 10.8.1, and then it will also update and rewrite the Designer Maximo interface to ensure compatibility among applications of the GIS Designer and Maximo. Schneider will also be providing any necessary training, user, factory acceptance testing, and support. The total cost of the service is $1,009,549. Upon your approval, Schneider will commence services. The entire project is estimated to take 18 months. The work will be governed in accordance with the terms and conditions of Schneider's agreement. The total cost of $1,009,549 is included in Lakeland Electric FY22 budget, and the portion of that is included in the FY22 budget is $800,000, and the remainder of the project would be subject to approval of the FY23 budget.
Questions on this at all? Next item.
The final item that we have is an agreement with Eaton Corporation. This is to purchase new low-voltage motor controls for Larson Unit 8. The existing motor controls were installed in the mid-1960s and are in need of replacement. This is particularly relevant due to recent failures at Unit 8, making it unavailable for service. So in order to ensure continued reliability of the unit, it's necessary to upgrade the equipment to utilize new technology. City's purchasing department did approve Eaton as a sole source supplier for the low voltage motor controls. Upon your approval, Eaton will deliver the motor controls, which is scheduled March 27th, 2022. For that spring outage. The motor controls will be installed by a third-party contractor, which will come to you for approval at a separate time. So Eaton will only be supplying the motor controls or the equipment itself. The total cost of the work is $208,709.23. That is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget.
Remind us why sole source provider criteria are met in a project.
Typically, when the staff will take a look at that, and they will have to go through, and the process that we have in place for the city, there is a separate document that has to be filled out by staff, and then that gets sent to purchasing. Our purchasing department reviews the sole source criteria, and there's specific things in that form, if the unavailability, if a lot of times if it's an original equipment manufacturer, all those things are considered, and then purchasing has to approve that. So every time we present you with a sole source proposal, that would have gone through our purchasing department for approval prior to coming to you. So it has been vetted.
Comments or questions? All right, thank you very much. That brings us to the end, I believe. Yes, of utilities. So comments from commissioners before the weekend ahead. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I'm glad Brian's here. I've gotten quite a few calls from friends of mine who live on Nevada Street area. Have y'all gotten any complaints from Nevada neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know you have too? Mm-hmm. Okay. I rode by. It's busy. What is the ramification for that?
Well, we have received the complaints through various sources. We've worked pretty closely with Palmer's office. I'm looking at him to jump in whenever he's ready.
Yeah, the water's not very inviting with that one. Ultimately, what our land development code provides is that a church is allowed in any residential area through a conditional use permit. So if they're operating church services, they would have to obtain a conditional use permit. Unfortunately, there's not a clear definition of a church in our land development code currently. So there's this blurry line between when you become a church versus when you're conducting Bible studies and hymn singing in a home, which is clearly very highly protected First Amendment activity. From discussions with the property owner, they have indicated that they're looking for another site to conduct this activity. So we've been trying to be patient with them to let them find that other site, and yet also let them know that we're very aware of what's going on. I mean, from a legal standpoint, I mean, if it continues on, we may not have any choice, but if they are looking in good faith, we would rather go that route than some kind of litigation route. So we're still working with them on another site.
There's no parking requirements for a conditional use?
If they ultimately are required to get a conditional use, they would have to establish some kind of parking arrangement.
They don't have a conditional use?
But right now, they are not in violation of any parking laws right now. I mean, parking along the street is allowed there on Nevada as well as most other residential roads.
What I may suggest to the participants in the neighborhood, they get up and park their cars in the street Saturday night, and that might alleviate some of the problem.
Or make it worse.
People to go and park.
So we're trying to work with them. Hopefully this will get resolved soon. If it doesn't, then we're going to have to look at some more serious options, and try to resolve this for the community, and the neighborhood.
To that end, I remember when this became a state, it was one of the bills that was proposed to the state level for some ordinance that would apply statewide across cities, which was rejected because people have the ability to assemble in their homes. But when it becomes a regular routine, it becomes something that we ought to take a look at, and I think that's wise.
Well, I've had a handful of people reach out to me about it, so it wasn't just a passing comment. So it went from 0 to 100 miles an hour pretty quick there. So
I think there was an accident there too, but I don't know. But
If I will just add, we are very aware of it, as hopefully we're presenting that this morning, and we are monitoring it with several different sections of staff, but we're also heavily relying on the attorney's office because of the legal ramifications involved.
Okay. Any other bright items that you'd like to bring up? There are Hispanic festivals this weekend? Yes?
Bright.
Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Oh, I'm sorry, next weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's correct, the 23rd weekend. Yes, sorry. Commissioner Madden.
Well, a bright item was a packed crowd for the Dream Center event last night. We had, I think it's Tommy Barnett.
700.
Who started the Dream Center in LA and said that he had been to 3 such celebrations recently, and ours was the largest attendance. And it was just really exciting to see that, they were still busy at work during the pandemic and have great plans to continue their work in that community. And it's been an honor for most of us to be a part of the community cleanups. And I know Commissioner Walker's not here today, but really his leadership on the gang task force, and certainly to see all of our LPD officers, and chief was there as a speaker, and our sheriff. It was a really great evening to be a part of last night. And then I also had, the Leadership Lakeland class was here with us yesterday. That's always fun. At the end of the Q&A to hear someone say that they've moved here from Winter Haven, and just after today's visit with our staff and our departments, just loved Lakeland all the more. So that was a good testimonial. And then one question I had just for my colleagues, this is just something because certainly we have this as our only chance to dialogue on issues that might come to our attention from the citizens. I think that most of you have talked to Mr. Peoples about a potential development that would be kind of a county, city property parcel, and the difficulty there with regard to water and wastewater services, being really close to the wastewater services on his property to county, and having a county property, but also wanting to get water from the city, and then the jurisdictional ramifications of getting water would require him to, bore and trench a pipe quite a long distance that he would have to pay for to do that. So it sounds like he's kind of in the valley of decision about 20 units with septic tanks versus 150 multifamily. And I know we've talked about that before, just really trying to take advantage of getting apartments in the city of Lakeland And, you know, this particular gentleman is something that I do hear, and the folks that he's worked with before, that is always disheartening to say that, you know, they've maybe had struggles in the past and just avoid working in Lakeland. And even though they live here and their children go to school here, have found that it's been difficult. This particular gentleman admitted that he's had a project to his own fault of having some wrong hires in engineering, that, you know, he was a part of the problem and admitted such, but really did want to see, you know, how he could work with the city of Lakeland and where we are on a body of trying to, like we've been talking about all day in this meeting, hearing citizens' concerns, knowing we have particular obligations like bonds to pay off with our water customers' fees, mitigating impact fees like we're going to be talking about, but also knowing that we need roads and these things. And certainly there's this, you know, healthy tension between, you know, the government services and also the citizens as our customers, and how we can get to a win-win. So I would just be curious to hear from my colleagues what their particular appetite is for. I've heard from our city manager that this is an operational decision. It would be the city manager and the county manager deciding if there was any kind of special exception for them to have city water and county wastewater, or, you know, whether or not we would require building out the entire water pipe, or if there's some kind of a, I don't know if there's a middle ground or some kind of negotiation that could be reached with regard to how much you'd have to invest to make that happen. So that's just something that, you know, like we all encounter. Mr. Music sounds like he's encountering quite a lot on his campaign trail. But I always like real life examples, you know, to bring to this body to remind us that yes, we all day long approve these ordinances, but this is the effect that it has in the community, and it's really important for us to know that from our customers so that we can make sure that if things need massaging or if things need to be changed, that we have those conversations.
Well, I'll respond. I met with him as well and advised him that the water was working on a plan that they would like to present as options to him in a couple of weeks, and so that he knows that that's aware. But we have intergovernmental agreements between the county and the city that address issues like this, and it's very important that we let those happen the way that we work together, because we can create an unintended consequence too, where there's a much greater cost borne by the city than there is by the developer, who has the benefit of the profits that the city of money expended. So we have to. There are times that we have to work together, and I think we're probably in process doing that both with water utilities, and he's aware of that, as well as certainly our city manager negotiating those things with the county. Any comment there?
Only that, you know, we've had conversations. I've left a message for Mr. Peoples, myself. I've had, you know, multiple, again, layers of the staff, including the city attorney's office, looking into, you know, what the possibilities are. You know, but certainly it does establish a precedence that is concerning in those areas where, you know, normally as part of development costs, you know, would require that the developer extend those lines, and then there's opportunities which are being looked into right now as to how, you know, the city might participate if we needed to, you know, upsize potentially the size of the lines, and where, you know, we may be able to hopefully maybe lower some of the cost. But even with that, I will tell you that I don't think we'll get to a point where what we might be able to partner in will be less costly than what this particular development would experience if they connected to the county. The precedence concern is that, you know, there are going to be other areas where lines need to be extended, where there may be other utility services closer that would be, again, less expensive. But because we do have, you know, debt related to the utility and it impacts our utility rates, it's kind of that slippery slope concept. But we're not completely closed off to it. We're trying to work through that. I have as I had mentioned to Commissioner Madden yesterday, I have a call in to Mr. Peoples and hope to connect with him today. It's a difficult call. We understand that it will be more costly, but you know, based on the way we work with development and based on our, statutory utility service area. It's difficult to allow another provider to make that connection. Because the other kind of unintended consequences, at some point in time, the line will be extended, more than likely to other development in the area. And then when we require those developments, to extend that line, how does that happen when we did not, require it from this development? So it's a difficult one, but we are working through it.
Commissioner McCarley.
Yeah, I think for those of us who are on the campaign trail and just in regular, situations as commissioners, is that if we had some kind of matrix, not to make it more bureaucratic, of how this is decided and how this is worked within, because I think it's really difficult for us because the community at large doesn't see it as apples to apples, they see it as apples to oranges. So if I'm a bigger developer, I do have the bandwidth and the financial stability to be able to pay for things like that. If I'm a smaller developer, I don't. So it seems incongruent for the different sizes of developers that we're talking about. And I think sometimes as, leaders, what we hear often is that on the city side is that it feels like when working with staff sometimes, well, you'll just pay for it, as in the developer will just pay for it like they have the deepest pockets. And so there are also taxpayers, there are also people who live here and reside here, and as Commissioner Madden said, their children go to school here. I think if we could have some kind of matrix to base these decisions on, because I know it's statutorily, you have a framework that you have to work within and that Bill Anderson and that group and our different department heads have to work within, but it's really hard when we're talking to constituents and they present this side and then we come back to staff and staff presents this side, and it kind of misses one another. So if I don't know what the answer to that is, I don't have a solution to it except that if there's a way that it can be shown to us so that we understand how those decisions are come to. And because I think sometimes the assumption, and I've heard this in other negotiations that we've had, like on the broadband deal and different things, is, well, they can just, that just comes out of that company's money and their big bank account, that the onus is on them. Well, that's, when you're talking about different size businesses, that's really difficult. We're not all Summits. We're not all, our businesses are not all the largest Publixes and have the deepest pockets. So we have to find some congruency to how we work with development, especially as we continue to grow and have these needs. So we have a need for housing. Obviously, we just talked about it earlier in the agenda. So how do we figure that out? How do we as commission, and how does staff come to those conclusions that aren't so arduous, that maybe there's a simple matrix we can look through as we work with people? And that's just my only suggestion on that.
Commissioner McConnell.
Thank you. And I had asked Sean just to keep us posted on that follow-up call and what solutions you're working toward or options presenting to him. I agree, Commissioner McCarley. I think you meet with Mr. Peoples and his argument makes sense. It's logical to me. And if I shared with Sean yesterday, if I were in his shoes, I'd probably be frustrated as well. But then I hear some of the counter from the city manager and legal and some of the other things, implications for the future, and that makes sense too. So where is that in the middle, and what options do we have? And I think what I shared with Sean is I don't want us to be unnecessarily difficult, and maybe we're not being that way, but sometimes there is that perception, right or wrong. And so how do we, is there a potential solution here that will work for both the developer and the city? That would be fantastic if so, but I know we do encounter those stories, and so this for me was, these were specifics of, hey, this is a situation that's difficult and I feel like I'm at an impasse with the city.
Mm-hmm.
Which is specifically why I told them they were working on the options.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Commissioner McMahon.
Well, and it would be great, just because we're having this conversation, certainly it's not under our direct purview to decide on what options are presented, but because we're going to have, some of these difficulties in that area of town when it's county, city, and there's, it's so close to both of those, I think it's a great educational point for us, and it gives us more talking points when we're talking to citizens on how to explain these issues. I will just say, it's a little bit different in my mind as a small business owner when you're saying that if they'll get more money in their business, if they do 150. To me, it's the water's business that needs to calculate the cost of delivering the service and receiving an ROI on what they charge, versus the apartment complex developer having to develop the city's water infrastructure to serve the customer portion that he's, certainly those customers will be paying commensurate to how many units they have. But I would think in my mind, the business owner of the infrastructure of the pipe is the water utility, who then will get an ROI based on how many people eventually attach. Sounds like they don't feel like they'll get the ROI because there's not enough people to attach in the future. And so if that's the case, then why not just let them attach to the county, or they're just going to build septic tanks, which we're not hugely in favor of going forward. It seems like we're kind of hoping that septic tanks go away environmentally. So to me, I'd like to see the math equation here. You know, for a person who wants to either build 20 homes or an apartment complex, they're counting the cost of that piece of land and, you know, the cost of the facility and the structure. Even things like road that you have to participate in to get your people to, there's no direct ROI to that roadway like there is in a water infrastructure where they're going to get money back from their customers to pay for that long term. So, you know, that's why it's a little different to me. Like, I feel like that doesn't seem fair, like to pay for a pipe to extend to your
I
property.
think that's why they're looking at the options. Commissioner McCarley.
I just want to add to that really quick that one of the hard things to being in business is that time is money.
Right.
So the longer that we hash this out, or staff hashes this out, or whatever, in this specific incident, that business is not making money. They are not being able to provide to even, you know, create more income so that they can continue to build their business. So where are we as a staff and as a commission and holding up? And I know we're improving all the time, but how are we holding people up? Like, if we're looking at a developer and kind of picking on that segment of business right now, you know, that is still cost driven. I mean, it's cost prohibitive. The more and the longer you wait, it's more cost prohibitive, and then maybe we'll just go build it somewhere else. And so I just want to be cognizant of that too, is that yes, we want to talk with staff and we want to have a solution from staff, but that every day that's not happening is another day that money's not pouring into that business and they're not being able to be profitable and not even profitable, maybe just break even.
Commissioner Music.
Yeah, I just, you know, and I've known this developer for a long time and a lot of things that he's done, and you know, we've got to be careful too as small business owners. It's you know, it's easy for someone to say, well, just take it out of some of your profits, or just right. You know, do this or that, and but at the end of the day, to echo what you were saying, developers, what do? They develop. So if they can't develop that intersection or that corner, I mean, their business model will take them to Hillsborough. It'll take them to wherever. So we're constantly talking about growth. We're talking, you know, constantly talking about how we're going to mitigate and strengthen that. And I certainly, you know, follow your mindset and your trail of, does it make sense? Financially, does it make sense for them to drag it, for us to drag it, whatever it is? At the end of the day, if he can put 180 units and for the, you know, forever they're going to be, you know, paying water fees. I mean, it seems like there's some numbers there. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Obviously, communication is the key, right? Phone calls are always a pain in the butt, you know, emails like that. So I always encourage the Camp David Accord mindset, right? Let's get together and either they can look and say it fits our business model or it doesn't, and the city has the opportunity to say the same thing. Hey, there's a reason why it's not here. Here's why. So there's fortunately there's a decent chunk of undeveloped land there. So, you know, if some heads can get together and figure that out, but being pro-development, obviously small business, and knowing that growth is coming, I mean, and it's also funny too, I've got friends that live right across the street, and we're always, and she's actually helping with the campaign, but they're not in the city, right? I mean, so we also sometimes don't realize that. I have a lady I talked to at an event last night, and she lives just on the other side of Lake Miriam. I said, well, you need to move. But you know, it's, you know, a lot of times it's stuff that we even don't know as we're driving. On our right hand is the city, on our left is the county, and you know, so it's I love that we talk about it. I love that we're dialoguing, because we all come from different spots and different positions, and we all are trying to protect as it is our own area. So I'm glad that Michael reached out to us, and I'm glad that he's taken the initiative to reach out to all of us, because it is important. He's shown a heart and an interest to want to do something in this, and I agree. I mean, we need to do less septic tanks every single year, and our city's doing that, right? We're taking over sections and putting in sewer for that very reason. So, and there's just to echo you guys. So
sure. And as a fellow business person and entrepreneur, there's also reasons land is purchasable at lesser cost in areas that don't have these services available. And part of the risk that I take as a buyer is to know that I have that in limbo. And so we have areas of our city we can't service affordably well today that will morph into these things, and there are projects that can help to make that possible. That's why they need to look at options and then come back with proposals. And so I want us to be somewhere in the middle on this as we have these discussions. Certainly we want to, if we could develop the units over septic tanks and 20 homes, that's a preference, obviously. But it also has to be cost effective.
For everybody.
Right, and so, it's always a balance. Yes, Commissioner
Thank
Reed.
you. There again, it's unique. Being on the zoning board for the county years ago, we run into this all the time because, we have our service area, the county has their service areas, and just how you protect your own area per se. And there again, I had met with Bill about this particular issues, and I think they're trying to do some working out between maybe two developers to mitigate the cost and stuff like that, but I'm not sure where it has gone. But and these inter-city county agencies have to deal with one another, and we just can't give up space. I'm pro for our space, and it's Bill made a very profound statement. If he'd go down the road a little bit, there's other sites that there's water and sewer, it's going to cost more. Whereas he picks a site that doesn't have water and sewer, it's going to cost him some more because he may have to bring it in himself. And if you weigh them out, they're probably going to be equal. But it's a difficult situation there again. I'm not too. Mike and I used to work together, so I like Hayesweek. But anyway, invariably, I'm sympathetic, but not too sympathetic. Sometimes you got to pay to play.
Yeah.
And invariably, hope there's something that can be worked out, but again, maybe some trade-offs. The county may give us some here, and we give them some there. But it's a unique situation, and there's potholes throughout the city and the county. Haines City, Winter Haven, everybody's got the same issues. Well, that has their own utilities department.
City Manager Strauss.
Again, we're working through it. It is kind of a difficult one. It's taking some time to try to figure out what the options are. I just would want to say that staff gains nothing by prohibiting this request. I mean, there's nothing gained. It's really the balance that we have to strike between what are the ratepayers going to fund and what is development going to fund. And that's a difficult, middle gap to stand in. And we're trying to please both, and we're trying to serve both, and to the best of our ability. But certainly, as we continue, I've had some conversations with a few of the commissioners. We'll continue to have those conversations, and ultimately, we'll need to get to a final decision. We do have an interlocal agreement that does give us some guidance in how that process works, and so that's where the comment to Commissioner Madden was made about it really, based on past commission's decisions to enter into that interlocal agreement, it does make it kind of an operational issue when it assigns it to the city manager and to the county manager. But by no means does that mean that I'm saying this is operational, so it's the city manager's decision to make. I'm certainly going to take the guidance from the commission on this as we move forward.
Great. Commissioner Music.
But that's why, every time, even in my short stint here, we have these developments that come in front of us. Here's what they ask, here's what we can give, and it's a barter table discussion, and he knows what his spreadsheet is going to look like at the end, and they do as well, and we as a city have got to look at the city money and the taxpayers' money and say, well, we're willing to give you this to get this, and back and forth, and that's why the 7 is great, because we all again come from different spots and have different positions, and we hope to represent the citizens well. So and I've seen the negotiations and the things that our city staff has done so well that I'm confident that strong heads will prevail and it'll be good. I hope.
Okay, good discussion. Thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? All right, then we are ready to take a break, and let's start at 10:35 for our discussion on impact fees.